Hey everyone, welcome back to the channel. Today I want to share a Christmas story that begins with quiet exhaustion and ends with a moment so gentle it breaks. A man opened in the best way possible, because sometimes the bravest hearts don't look brave at all, they just keep showing up for the people they love. It was the kind of December evening where the cold didn't just nip at your fingers. It settled into your bones and reminded you of every long night you'd pushed through. Alone, Mark tightened his coat as he locked the front door behind him, listening for the familiar sounds inside. The TV was on low, cartoons murmuring like a lullaby. And from the hallway he could hear his daughter, Lily, humming to herself while brushing her hair, the soft, uneven tune she always sang when she was nervous. She was 8, all elbows and optimism, with eyes too observant for her age. His son, Noah, 6, was already asleep on the couch, a crumpled drawing resting on his chest like a badge of honor. Mark smiled at that. Noah never went anywhere without leaving behind a piece of himself. Mark paused, keys in hand, wondering for the 10th time if he should really go. A Christmas blind date. The words still felt unreal, like something that belonged to another life. A life where he wasn't constantly calculating time and money and energy. He hadn't dated in 3 years, not since his wife Anna passed away after a sudden illness. That rearranged everything in a single hospital hallway. Friends had tried before, gently at first, then with increasing insistence. He always said no. He said he wasn't ready. The truth was more complicated. He wasn't sure how to be a man outside of being a father anymore, but tonight, Lily had looked up at him with that careful seriousness she used when she wanted to sound grown, and said, "Dad, it's okay to try being happy again. Mom would want that." Those words landed heavier than any argument. He hadn't trusted himself to answer, just nodded and hugged her, breathing in the scent of shampoo and safety. The babysitter arrived, a college student from down the street, cheerful and competent. Mark gave her instructions he knew by heart, and kissed his kids goodnight. Lily wrapped her arms around his waist and whispered, "Don't be scared." He laughed softly and said he wasn't. But she squeezed him tighter like she knew better. The restaurant was small and warm, decorated with twinkling lights and evergreen branches that smelled like December. A handwritten chalkboard announced a holiday special, and a bell chimed when Mark stepped inside. He felt out of place immediately, like a man wearing someone else's coat. He checked his phone, rereading the message from his friend who'd set it up. Her name was Clara. Funny, she works with kids. That was all he knew. He spotted her near the window, sitting straight-backed, hands wrapped around a mug. She looked up when he approached, eyes bright, a smile forming that wasn't forced or practiced. It was the smile of someone who was present. They exchanged names and small laughs and the awkward relief of recognizing each other from photos. That never quite capture a person. Mark apologized for being late even though he wasn't. Clara waved it off, saying she'd enjoyed the quiet. Conversation came slowly, then easier. They talked about the weather, the food, the way Christmas lights made everything feel briefly possible. Mark found himself listening, more than talking, which felt safe. Clara spoke with warmth, but not noise. The kind of person who didn't fill silences because she trusted them. When she asked about his kids, her eyes didn't flicker with pity or hesitation. She leaned in like she wanted to understand. He told her the basics. Single dad, 2 kids, long days. He didn't mention Anna, at first, not because he was hiding her, but because he didn't know how to place that loss on a table between appetizers. Clara didn't push. She asked about Lily's favorite books and Noah's drawings. She laughed at the right places. Not too loud, not too careful. Halfway through the meal, Mark's phone buzzed. He froze, that instant spike of panic that never left him when he wasn't with his kids. He checked it quickly. A message from the babysitter. "All good?" Noah woke up, used the bathroom, back asleep. Lily's watching a movie. Mark exhaled a breath he hadn't realized he was holding. Clara noticed and smiled gently, like she understood the constant hum of worry without needing it, explained after dinner. Snow began to fall, soft and deliberate, turning the street into something quieter. They decided to walk for a bit, hands tucked into pockets, breath visible. Mark felt strange and light, like he'd stepped into a version of himself he remembered but hadn't seen in years. They passed a small park where a community tree stood lit and glowing. Children's ornaments hung from the branches, paper snowflakes, and names written in marker. Clara stopped. "This is my favorite spot," she said. "I come here every year." Mark nodded, suddenly unsure of what to say. The lights reflected in the snow, and for a moment he thought of Anna, of how she loved Christmas lights, how she'd drag him out on cold nights to see them. The memory rose sharp and unexpected. His throat tightened. He turned away slightly, embarrassed by the swell of feeling. "I should tell you something," he said quietly. "I haven't done this in a long time." Clara waited. "My wife passed away 3 years ago. I don't really know how to do this. Dating. Being here. She didn't rush to fill the space. She didn't say she was sorry in that automatic way people do. She just nodded, her expression steady and kind. "Thank you for telling me," she said. "That takes courage." They stood there for a moment, snow settling on their coats. Mark felt the weight of his life pressing in, the schedules and the grief, and the hope he kept folded away like a fragile letter. He wondered if this was the point where things got awkward, where Clara would decide this was too much. Instead, she reached into her bag. "I brought something," she said, almost shy. "I know it's a blind date, and maybe this is strange, but I brought it anyway." She handed him a small envelope. His name was written on the front in careful letters. Mark stared at it, confused. "For me. For you," she said. "And for your kids, if you want." His hands trembled slightly as he opened it. Inside was a folded piece of paper and 3 tiny ornaments made of felt. One had a little book stitched on it. One had a crayon. The third was a simple heart. "I volunteer at a community center," Clara said softly. "We make these with kids every year. When my friend told me about you, I thought, maybe you'd like something small to take home." "The book is for Lily. The crayon is for Noah. And the heart is just for your family." Mark couldn't speak. The cold air felt suddenly sharp in his lungs. No one had done something like this for him in a long time. Not without being asked, not with such quiet thoughtfulness. He imagined Lily's face lighting up, Noah clutching the crayon ornament like treasure. He imagined hanging them on their small tree, the one he'd put up mostly for the kids. Even when it hurt. "I didn't want to overwhelm you," Clara continued, misreading his silence. "If it's too much," he shook his head, a tear escaping before he could stop it. Then another, he turned away, embarrassed, but it was too late. The dam broke. Years of holding it together, of being strong because there was no other option, came rushing out in the space of a snowy park. "I'm sorry," he said, voice cracking. "I don't usually, no one ever thinks about me like this. They think about the kids, and that's good, that's right. But you saw all of us." Clara didn't reach out immediately. She waited until he looked at her. "Really?" "Looked." Then she stepped closer and placed a hand over his, warm through the glove. "You're doing something extraordinary," she said, raising them with love. "Carrying all of this. You deserve kindness too." Mark cried then, quietly but completely, the way a person cries when they finally feel safe enough to let go. The snow kept falling, indifferent and beautiful. The lights on the tree blinked patiently. They walked back toward the restaurant after that, slower, more grounded. Mark felt lighter, like something had been acknowledged that he'd been carrying alone. They talked about small things again, about favorite holiday movies and bad Christmas sweaters. It wasn't about romance in that moment. It was about connection. About being seen. When they reached the corner, Clara stopped. "I don't know what you're looking for," she said honestly, "and I don't want to rush anything, but I'd like to see you again, even if it's just a walk, or hot chocolate, or meeting your kids someday, if that feels right." Mark nodded, wiping his eyes and smiling through the remnants of tears. "I'd like that," he said, and he meant it in a way that surprised, and they hugged goodbye, a simple embrace, respectful and warm. As Mark drove home, the ornaments rested on the passenger seat like tiny promises. The house was quiet when he returned. The babysitter whispered updates and left. Mark checked on Noah, who murmured in his sleep, and Lily, who pretended to be asleep until Mark kissed her forehead. "Did it go okay?" she whispered. He smiled. "Yeah," he said. "It did." He hung the ornaments on the tree carefully. He felt Hart caught the light just right. Mark sat on the floor for a moment, letting the quiet settle. He thought of Anna, of how she'd wanted him to keep living fully. He thought of Clara's kindness, of the way she'd shown up without trying to fix anything. On Christmas morning, Lily spotted the new ornaments immediately. "Dad, these are new," she said, eyes wide. Mark told him about Clara in simple terms. He watched as Lily hugged the book ornament and Noah spun the crayon one between his fingers. The tree felt fuller somehow, not just with decorations, but with something like hope. Days turned into weeks. Mark and Clara took things slowly. Walks turned into coffee. Coffee turned into shared stories. Eventually, she met the kids and Lily, approved with the seriousness of a tiny judge. Noah drew Clara a picture and declared her nice. One evening, as they all sat together watching lights flicker outside, Mark felt that familiar swell of emotion, but this time it didn't hurt. It felt like gratitude. He realized that what had made him cry that night wasn't just the gift. It was the reminder that his life wasn't only about survival anymore. There was room again for connection, for warmth, for moments that surprised him, and maybe that's the quiet magic of Christmas. Not the big gestures or the perfect endings, but the small acts of seeing each other clearly. A single dad who dared to show up. A woman who chose kindness without expectations. Two kids who learned that love can grow in new shapes. If this story touched you, take it as a reminder that it's never too late to let someone see you, and that sometimes the smallest gestures carry the biggest healing. Thanks for spending this time with me, and I'll see you in the next one.